Good morning, dear students. In our last class of nationalism in India, we discussed the different stages of Indian national movement as well as the impact of First World War on Indian economy. Today we are going to understand about Gandhiji and his idea of Satyagraha as well as Rowlat Act of 1919. First of all, let us know something about Gandhiji. As you know, Mohandas Karamchandh Gandhi was born on 2nd October 1869 at Porbandar in Gujarat. He pursued law for 1 year at the University of Bombay and later went to University College London and completed his graduation in 1891. After that, he started working in the Bar Council of England and also went to South Africa where he experienced racism or social segregation. As you know, Gandhiji fought against apartheid in South Africa and came back to India in 1915 and joined with the Indian national movement. So Gandhiji is known for his Satyagraha and the idea of truth and non-violence. Gandhiji entered the Indian national movement by introducing his idea of Satyagraha, and he successfully executed the idea of Satyagraha in three important places in India. He started his public life in 1916 and organized the first Satyagraha at Champaran in Bihar in 1916. Remember, Gandhiji introduced his first Satyagraha, first strike against British at Champaran in Bihar in 1916. Here he introduced the Satyagraha against the oppressive plantation system. So British had plantation system in Bihar and many Indians worked in the plantations, but the people who worked in the plantations were ill-treated or tortured, were not given any human rights. They were paid very poor and the working condition was very poor. So against this, Gandhiji organized Champaran Satyagraha and successfully he won the battle without any bloodshed or without any violence. And his second Satyagraha was in 1917 at Kheda. It is in Gujarat. The reason of this Kheda Satyagraha was to suspend the revenue collection due to the crop failure. So in 1917, in this Kheda, the farmers were in crisis because the crops failed due to the severe climatic condition. The crops failed, so they were unable to get any revenue from the cultivation and they were unable to pay the revenue or the tax to the government. So they requested government to suspend the revenue or the tax, but British were not ready to suspend this tax. So they informed Gandhiji. So Gandhiji came to Kheda in 1917 and organized a Satyagraha against this revenue collection and successfully forced the British to accept the demand of the farmers. The third Satyagraha that Gandhiji organized was at Ahmedabad in 1918. So it was in Gujarat. This Satyagraha was to improve the condition of the mill workers. So there were many cotton mills in Ahmedabad where many thousands of Indians worked, but unfortunately their condition, their working condition, their wages and their rights were very poor. British were ill-treating them. So against this condition, the mill workers requested Gandhiji and Gandhiji supported the mill workers and conducted the Satyagraha, and here also Gandhiji was successful to accept the Britishers the demands of the mill workers. So these are the three important successful Satyagrahas: Champaran in Bihar against the oppressive plantation system, and Kheda Satyagraha in Gujarat to suspend the revenue collection, and 1918 the Ahmedabad Satyagraha to improve the condition of the mill workers were the three important consecutive success that Gandhiji won against British through his modern method of agitation, the Satyagraha. Dear students, now let's understand the idea of Satyagraha and how it was organized and executed by Gandhiji. Satyagraha was a powerful weapon introduced by Gandhiji in India as a way of resistance or protest against British. Nowadays, we have a Bandh or Hartal or many other kinds of protest if against any authority. But Gandhiji introduced such a kind of a protest called Satyagraha. Satyagraha emphasized the power of truth and the need of truth. So remember two important basic or foundational principles of Satyagraha, that is truth and non-violence. It says if the cause is true, cause means the reason is true, if the struggle is against injustice, means if the struggle is against a wrong thing, physical force means violence is not necessary to fight against the oppressor or the opponent. So this is a great principle introduced by Gandhiji to support his idea of Satyagraha. If the reason is true, if you are fighting for a true reason, and if your struggle is against an injustice, a wrong thing, you need not use any violence or physical force to defeat or to fight against the oppressor. According to him, a Satyagrahi has to win the battle through non-violence. You might have seen that nowadays, whenever there is a public protest in our country, Bandh or Hatal, we can see the people break the glasses of the government vehicles, they burn the offices, and lots of violence. But according to Gandhiji, a Satyagrahi has to win the battle through non-violence. Don't physically hurt anyone. This could be done, according to him, by appealing the conscience of the oppressor. Appealing the conscience of the oppressor means the oppressor here is British. You have to impress or you have to appeal the conscience or the mind, the thought of the oppressor. You have to influence, you have to convince. Even the oppressor should be persuaded to see the truth without violence. That means seeing your patient resistance, the oppressor, that means here the British, should be forced to realize the truth behind your struggle and they themselves turn towards your reason or in favor of you. So this is actually what Gandhiji tried to tell us through Satyagraha. Even the oppressor should be forced to see the truth without violence. Gandhiji believed that the dharma of non-violence could unite all Indians. He never thought of using violence to get freedom for India. So he believed that the dharma of non-violence could unite all Indians. According to Gandhiji, a real Satyagrahi should be ready to undergo any type of hardships or torture. A Satyagrahi who is fighting for a real reason should be ready to face, suffer any kind of hardships or difficulties by the oppressor. So this was the idea of Satyagraha introduced by Gandhiji. Dear students, now let's move to the next important sequence or the event that happened in 1919 in India just before the Jallianwala Bagh massacre as well as the starting of non-cooperation movement. So that was the Rowlat Act. Remember, this Rowlat Act was passed by the Imperial Legislative Council of Britain in 1919. Rowlat Act was passed by the Imperial Legislative Council of Britain in 1919 against India. So, what was the feature of this act? This act gave enormous power to the British government to oppress the political activities in India. You know, in India, the people were moving against the British government. They were conducting satyagrahas, they were protesting on the road, and the British realized that the political mobilization is improving in India with the leadership of Gandhiji. So, to oppress this political movement, the British introduced Rowlat Act. So, what is the specialty of this act? It empowered the government to arrest and imprison any person for 2 years without trial. Means British can arrest any Indian and directly put into prison without submitting to the court. Nowadays, in legal system, if a person is accused as a culprit, the police used to arrest them, and instead of jail, they directly go to the court. And it is the magistrate, the judge, who wanted to decide whether the person should be given bail, or whether the person should be left in judicial custody, or whether the person should be sent to in the jail. So that should be decided after trial by the lawyers in the court. That's a real procedure. But here British introduced this Rowlat Act, according to which any Indian at any time, anywhere, can be arrested and imprisoned without any legal trial for 2 years. It was totally an illegal law. So Gandhiji wanted a non-violent civil disobedience against this unjust law that he planned to start with a hartal on 6th April. So Gandhiji planned to conduct a hartal, that is the same like Bandh, just a non-cooperating with the British. Hartal on 6th April to violate or to disobey this law. So, non-violent civil disobedience. So, civil disobedience means just to disobey the Rowlat Act. So, in India, many rallies were organized. Workers in many of the mills and other places went on strike. They also protested in railway workshops, and many of the shops, the markets were closed. So, Hartal means all the workers of India, they decided to non-cooperate and disobey this Rowlat Act. And what happened? British became panic. British arrested the national leaders like Dr. Satyapal and Saifuddin Kichlu, and Gandhiji was barred or stopped from entering Delhi. British started to suppress the Rowlat Act movement. So this is known as the Rowlat Act movement and Rowlat Act. So remember, it was an act passed by British to suppress the political movement of India by giving opportunity to the British to arrest and imprison any person without trial for 2 years. So Gandhiji and Congress organized a non-violent civil disobedience movement as well as Hartal in India, and many protests were organized, and the British also started to oppress it by arresting many national leaders. As a part of this, there happened the bloody massacre of Jallianwala Bagh. That we will understand later. Dear students, today we have understood about Gandhiji, the great idea of Gandhiji, the Satyagraha, and also what is Rowlat Act and why was it opposed by Indians. So read the same part in textbook, and if you have any doubt, please ask me and clear the doubt and have clear-cut idea about these three concepts. Thank you.